Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. My name is Justina Sofia Adli as the first presenter, and I'm here to present to you about the introduction as well as the roles of Yang Di-pertuan Agong in Malaysia. Firstly, did all of you know that the YDPA is legally elected every 5 years? The Yang Di-pertuan Agong is legally elected to a 5-year term by and is chosen by the Conference of Rulers, which consists of the 9 rulers of the Malay states, and the position is de facto rotates between them, making Malaysia one of the few elective monarchies in the world. YDPA is Malaysia's constitutional monarch and head of state, and also well known as the supreme head of the federation, paramount ruler and king. Now in 2022, Sultan Abdullah of Pahang is the 16th and the current Yang Di-pertuan Agong, succeeding Muhammad V of Kelantan, who abdicated on January 6, 2019. Next, let's move on to the functions or roles of YDPA. To begin with, we frequently wonder what are the roles and functions of YDPA. There are actually a lot and more of functions of YDPA that we don't know, and I'm about to begin with the first function. The Yang Di-pertuan Agong serves as the constitutional monarch of Malaysia. The Malaysian Federal Constitution and Acts of Parliament enacted in compliance with specify the scope of his power as the country's leader. Powers exerted on the recommendation of the Cabinet or a minister working under the general authority of the Cabinet, the Conference of Rulers, or another person or organization are split into 2 categories, which are adversary powers and discretionary powers. The King has executive control over the federal government according to the Constitution. With limited exceptions, he must exercise his power on the advice of the Cabinet or a minister acting under the overall authority of the Cabinet. The YDPA is in charge of the federal government's executive branch. The Yang Di-pertuan Agong's discretionary powers include appointing the Prime Minister, withholding consent to dissolve Parliament, and convening session with the Conference of Rulers. Besides, the Yang Di-pertuan Agong is also expected to choose a Prime Minister who will command the confidence of a majority of the elected lower house of Parliament, the Dewan Rakyat, under the Westminster system. Should the Prime Minister be or become unacceptably unpopular, a vote of no confidence might force him out, requiring the Yang Di-pertuan Agong to dissolve Parliament on the Prime Minister's advice.
Hi, my name is Ashraf Azri and I'm going to presenting the next element of the function of the YDPA. YDPA has a role in making proclamation of emergency status on a certain situation such as economic crisis, public health, and due to the safety of the country. However, this particular authority cannot act on the free will of the YDPA and only declare of the emergency status on the advice of the Prime Minister. Emergency status is where some of the procedure will be exception due to the certain situation. For example, after YDPA has declared the emergency status within the country where any bills of law will be implemented immediately to ensure the dire situation could be overcome. One of the issues that happened is when Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin advised the YDPA to declare the emergency status. Thus, the YDPA has granted the emergency status due to the COVID-19 cases that are increased widely. As a result, only YDPA can proclaim this particular emergency status on the critical situation.
Third function of Yang Di-pertuan Agong is as the Supreme Commander of the Armed Force. In the Malaysian Armed Force, the position of Supreme Commander is the highest senior position in the governing structure of the Malaysian Armed Force. When the Federation of Malaya was established in 1957, this position was created. The Federal Armed Force Act and the Malaysian Constitution govern its functions, responsibilities, and powers. Next, the rest of Field Marshal, Fleet Admiral, and RMDF Marshal will all be given to each YDPA. all the YDPA who serve as Yang Di-pertuan Agong have the highest rank. Furthermore, under Article 41 states that the YDPA shall be the supreme commander of the Federal Armed Force. Other than that, in Article 42 of the Federal Constitution, he has the authority to pardon and lessen the sentence for offense prosecuted in the court martial.
Next, we move on the function of YDPA in judiciary. YDPA will have the right to appoint the Chief Justice of Federal Court, the President of the Court of Appeal, and the Chief Judge of the High Court, who will act on the Prime Minister advice following the Conference of Rulers. It is a bicameral parliament for Malaysia. The monarch, Yang Di-pertuan Agong, is wanted as advice from executive to elect the House of Representatives, which is a single-member district, and the two-thirds is for Senatorate appointed by state. The Yang Di-pertuan Agong can dissolve or discredit the Dewan Rakyat election in the Constitution for the Speaker. Parliament advice for the Prime Minister. Each state will have a single legislature for every 5-year election. For example, in every meeting within the parliament, the president will be addressed by the Prime Minister. Article 40, parenthesis 2 of the Malaysian Constitution lay out the role of the Yang Di-pertuan Agong. He will be able to act or give relevant information that regards with the issue of the state that, by according to the Article 40, parenthesis 2, important subject in federalism such as civil and criminal law, citizenship, finance, commercial, shipping, and communication.
To conclude, in Malaysia, the monarchy is an important institution. The monarchs are the country's main focus or symbol of identity. At the same time, the federal constitution provides important responsibility of the YDPA, the rulers and the COR that impact the administration of the country. Most of the time, the YDPA is required to act in accordance with the Prime Minister or Cabinet of Ministers' advice. The Yang Di-pertuan Agong holds various powers and various duties. The king's primary duty and responsibility are to preserve and protect the country's independence. This is most likely the most important and vital function of the Yang Di-pertuan Agong institution for an independent and sovereign nation. For example, in the past, the YDPA and the rulers have been asked to interfere in the country's administration. During the 1MDB crisis, former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir led the Save Malaysia movement, which requests that the YDPA and the COR intervene to remove then Prime Minister Datuk Najib Razak from the government.